And so in terms of how do we discern between which emotional response is accurate and which is not, ask yourself if that emotion is pushing you in the direction of your value system. If there's one thing the Stoics had right, it's that they put so much emphasis on dealing with emotions. I mean, everything in life gets down to your emotions and how you deal with them, how you manage them. Everything. It's one of the first things you have to learn as a child, as a teenager. When you're 2 years old, for example, you're at that stage where you really just have to figure out how to deal with your outbursts. I mean, they call them the terrible twos for a reason. It's because kids are kind of crazy at that point in time. But it's at that point in time in children's development where they really have to focus on how to control their emotions. And there's a lot of science that point in the direction that if you don't get your emotions under control as a child, it can really have severe impacts as you get older. So it's one of the first things in terms of development as human beings that we have to learn. But then throughout your whole life, you're dealing with emotions, you're managing them. As a teenager, I mean, you have raging hormones. What do hormones do? They dictate your mood. They push you. They make you think weird things. They make you edgy. Sometimes they make you relax, depending on the hormone. And so when you're a teenager, obviously a lot of us, if we think back, or maybe you're a teenager right now, it's tough. It's really tough. You're dealing with peer pressure. You get all these bodily changes. And you got so many things going on in your head. So many things that you're feeling. So many emotions, anxiety, stress. So much of it. And it doesn't really change that much when you become an adult. I mean, surely your systems are more developed, so you don't have as many impulses, say. But you still have to deal with your emotions. How you deal with the emotion that you feel when you find out your girlfriend's pregnant, or when you are pregnant. How you feel and how you manage your way through failure, through getting fired, through getting hired, through success. How you manage fear. Fear that stops you from doing something that you want to do, you know that you should do. What about relationships? Man, all relationships really get down to how you deal with your emotions. So, the Stoics, they talk so much about emotions and how to process what you're feeling. And if you think about like how our brains are wired, I mean, the emotions go back way before we were able to think logically. And so what often happens is our initial impulses are emotional. And a lot of times they're built on survival. They're built on us wanting to protect ourselves. That's why fear is so important. Because fear says there's a chance that you might get hurt. And so if you think about like an animal that doesn't have the logic and the rational brain that we have, they're all instinctual. And that's not always a bad thing. If you've ever been hunting, for example, you'll know that if it's in the middle of the season and the ducks or the deer or whatever you're hunting is aware and they've been shot at many, many times, even the smallest movement in the trees will cause them to fly off in fear. And so it's not always a bad thing. I mean, instincts, emotions, they do point to something, but they don't always point to something, and that's the problem with them. Take that same duck, Bill the duck. Let's call him Bill. So Bill has survived duck season. Every time he heard a twig snap, he flew into the air, got away. But then there's a point in the season, and Bill doesn't know this because he can't read, right? There's a point in the season where the season stops. It comes to a close. There's no more hunters in the woods. And then Bill goes down, Bill the duck, and he tries to get this food, and he's really hungry, right? Because he's barely eaten because he's gotten fired at so many times. He finds this food finally, and he goes down and he almost starts to eat, but he hears a twig snap in the trees, and he runs for dear life. And that's his response, because that's how he's conditioned. He's instinctual. He's emotional. It's an emotional response. And it's good in some sense because it caused him to survive. It's bad in another sense because now it's prohibiting him from being able to enjoy a meal, which he desperately needs for survival. And so the difference between you and I and Bill the duck is that you and I can make that distinction. You and I can say, well, you know what? It's over. The season is over and no one's going to be shooting at us anymore. So I can hear that twig snap and I can feel the fear, but I can rationalize that, okay, see, the season is over, so I can eat this meal. And that's the same way with everything that we do in life. We have an emotional response. We have an emotion. We feel something. And that feeling can be accurate. It can be good, a good indicator of what's going on. But a lot of times it's not. A lot of times we have trauma, such as Bill the duck experienced through hunting season, that causes us to be unable to really do what we know is best for us. And so you have an emotional response, and then you as a human being, you have something that's very unique, and it's just extraordinary that nature gave us this. You have the ability to discern. You have the ability to think about this. You think, is my fear worthwhile? Is my fear worthwhile? Do I need to flee or can I stay? And it's such an amazing thing. And don't take that for granted that you have that ability. But then the question becomes like how do you access that? Because again, these emotions, I mean, they're ripe. They're all the time. It's like they're so intense. Dealing with success, dealing with failure, dealing with fear, fear of rejection, fear of failure. There's so much. And they're so strong. Hey there. Let me thank you for being a listener to this ad-free podcast. If you enjoy the podcast, there are a few things you can do to help me out. A 5-star review on Spotify or wherever you're listening to this really does help, and it's free. You can also sign up for my Substack newsletter or Patreon. Substack free gets each episode emailed to you along with the transcripts in the form of an article. You'll also get access to my live talks, followed by a Q&A afterward. Substack Premium supporters and my patrons on Patreon get access to the recordings and a brief article of those Q&A sessions, access to full episodes of the Paradoxically Speaking podcast, my Steps to Success interview series, Stoic meditations, and much more. Links to Substack and Patreon can be found. And so how do you discern? And the answer is not a fun one. The answer is that it's just really difficult. It's really difficult to discern between when emotions are useful, meaning when they are aligned with logic, and when they are not. It's very difficult. But what I would say is that one of the other things that make us not uniquely human, but it's kind of unique in the animal kingdom, is that we have herds. We have groups of people. We have communities. And those communities do a lot for us. I mean, first of all, they set standards, which is really important. They set standards, meaning if you have an emotional response, but it goes against the standards of the society, you probably won't do it. An example, stealing. Like when you're a kid, most kids, if you watch them, when they're, I don't know, 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, in that age range. I remember my brother being in that age group. And he was a good kid, pretty moral. But there was a moment in time I saw him. We were at the store, and there was some candy there, right in arm's reach. And he wanted it. And he knew he had to pay for it. But he decided to slowly move towards it, and he was kind of looking at me through the corner of his eye. And I had to tell him, no, we don't steal. That's bad. Stealing is bad. And now, after that, he understood stealing is bad, even though he kind of understood at that time. But the point is that we have a standard in society, one of those being, do not steal. No, nobody follows it 100%, but that is a standard in society. And we can use that to counteract a lot of our emotions. Like if you're a kid, your impulse a lot of times is, well, if it's just right here and I can get away with it, why, just take this candy. I want the candy. Society comes in and says, no, we know your impulse. Don't do it. Now, I'm not making the case that all kids and all people are inherently geared towards evil, but I'm saying that that's one mechanism in society that we use to stop people from following their emotions. And that's really like community, it's society. And then when you get back to community, it's such a wonderful thing that you have people around you that serve so many purposes. First of all, they can tell you when you're doing something stupid or foolish, or when you're being fearful, or when you're being anxious. For example, if you have that friend that's always nervous about going out in public, you say, listen, you have to get out. You have to meet people. It's not good for you to stay locked up in your room all the time. Come out with us. Come join the party. You'll meet people. And so we have people around us that can notice the emotions we're feeling and drag us towards redemption, drag us out of our box and into the world, which is where we need to be. And so that's wonderful. That's number 2. Number 3, we get to observe other people. We get to see that actually there are some people in life, in our world, in our environment, around us, who we actually respect. And respect is such a great way for us to know how we should act. Because if we respect someone else for acting a certain way, that means that we deem that good. That shows us what our value system is. And so, if you respect someone, that's another standard. And the point I'm trying to make is that through community, through logic, through reason, we can get an idea of how we feel we should be acting in the world. We should, well, let's sum it up in the Stoic sense. We should be courageous, we should be just, we should be temperate, and we should be wise. That's the goal. That's the goal. That's the standard. And so in terms of how do we discern between which emotional response is accurate and which is not, ask yourself if that emotion is pushing you in the direction of your value system. So if you just took on a new job and you're anxious about it and you're nervous and maybe you're failing and you're struggling, think about it. If you have the impulse to quit, ask yourself, would a courageous person quit? Would a strong person quit? Probably not. If you're looking at that beautiful woman across the superstore and you're thinking, man, I'd like to go chat with her, ask yourself, would a courageous person let this fear get the better of them? Let's go another way. You become really successful and your emotions say, man, I feel on top of the world. I'm better than everyone else. Ask yourself, would a just person, would a wise person, would they feel like they are better than everyone else? Would they act in such a way that makes them feel like they're better than everyone else, and would they brag about what they're doing? Well, probably not. So let's bring this episode home. Managing your emotions is everything. Full stop. Period. If you can't manage your emotions, you cannot live appropriately in the world. So get good at that. However, our emotions are inputs from the environment, and they can be useful. They can help us survive sometimes. They can point us to potential issues. So how do we discern between A and B? Well, we use the standards of society. We use those around us as guidance. We use our own idea of what it is to be a good person as a reference point. And when we feel our emotions pointing us to be a coward, to be unjust, to binge on something, to be foolish, well, we recognize that for what it is. So it's really, really simple. If your emotions are telling you not to do something, but you know you should, well, you do it. And if your emotions are telling you you should do something and you know you should, well, you do it. It's great if the emotions align, but if they don't, always know that fundamentally, you have to live with yourself based on reason. And you use your reason to help guide you towards whoever it is you want to become.